A few days prior, Hyunjin had addressed his classmates about Shin, detailing how Shin had disrupted their once peaceful school environment. Hyunjin announced that they could now treat Shin however they wished, as Shin wouldn't fight back. He emphasized that participation was voluntary, no one was compelled to join in the harassment. However, if no one chose to participate, Shin would live a quiet life until graduation, as though he had never existed in their school. Hyunjin made it clear, if they resented Shin and his actions, they could act without fear of punishment. For the past 3 years, Han's story had been monotonous and filled with torment. He was bullied simply because he had once made eye contact with Shin. Han's life became that of a toy, no one cared if it was broken. As he counted down the days to graduation, Han often wondered if Shin would ever remember him or recognize the wrong in his actions. But Han knew the answer, of course Shin wouldn't. He would forget and learn nothing. This realization drove Han to act, seeking some form of solace for his wounded heart. Han approached Shin, hitting him over the head and pinching him, mimicking what Shin had done to him before. He spits in Shin's food, saying, "Enjoy your meal, bastard," Han sneered, recalling the cruel words Shin had once said to him. But Han's actions were only the beginning. Others soon followed, harassing Shin at every opportunity. The relentless abuse drove Shin to the brink, contemplating if he should just give up and retaliate violently. Yet, the thought of Hyunjin's threatening glare kept him in check. He reminded himself he only had to endure this torment for 1 month. In the classroom, Hyunjin pondered his next steps. He had hoped to extract information about the golden circle from Shin, but since Shin knew nothing, he was back at square one. Still, he had some clues. The employer was likely a fellow student, wealthy enough to hire the golden circle. By narrowing down these parameters, he could identify potential suspects. However, he knew he shouldn't rush, he needed to focus on his current target for now. Meanwhile, Shin was suffering constant bullying. When he pleaded for help, his cries were met with indifference. After one particularly brutal attack, Hyunjin sent him a message with a proposition: he had a new game. If Shin accepted, his school life would become peaceful and the harassment would cease. Desperate for relief, Shin immediately agreed, much to Hyunjin's satisfaction. That night, Shin stands in front of a convenience store, questioning if he's making the right decision. But at this point, he doesn't care anymore. He enters the store where Park Min-cheol is working and beats him mercilessly. This was a premeditated attack, as Shin also targets Park Min-cheol's friends, leaving them battered and bruised. They contemplate reporting him, but realize it's futile. They decide to consider themselves lucky and try to forget the incident as if it never happened. When Shin encounters them all together, they demand to know why he did it. Shin explains that it's not out of spite but because Hyunjin knows his weaknesses. He tells them that if they endure 1 month of living in hell, Hyunjin will forgive him. This means they will all have to suffer together. Shin begins viciously assaulting them, declaring that none of this would have happened if they had just stayed out of it. Kang Chung-sik attempts to tackle Shin, questioning what they did wrong in the first place. Shin, now livid, feels no impact from Kang's tackle and is infuriated by the attempt. He tells Kang that their mistake was simple: they didn't do their jobs properly, ruining all their lives. He berates Kang for daring to challenge him, reminding him of his place. With a final knee strike, Shin knocks Kang out cold and stands over him, smiling. Just when he thinks things might be easier than expected, he feels a sharp pain in his left side. Desperate, Park Min-cheol has stabbed him, saying Shin should never have crossed this line. Park blames Shin for their doomed situation and questions why he is now attacking them. As Shin Yongman collapses to his knees, he realizes Hyunjin's true objective: mutual and total destruction. They were all doomed from the start. Hyunjin just decided who would suffer the most. The next day, rumors about the incident spread quickly, with Park Min-cheol being the prime suspect in Shin's stabbing. All involved end up in juvenile detention. Curiously, they all pleaded guilty immediately and requested to be sent to juvenile detention as soon as possible, eager to escape Daesan. Hyunjin, speaking on the phone with Chang, hears that everything went exactly as planned. Young Minho's family, seeing no future left in Daesan, sold all their properties and left. Relocating to Gyeonggi-do, where Minho prepared to enter a new public school. Hyunjin commented that it wasn't surprising the child of a wealthy family avoided juvenile detention. Chang offered to pull some strings to ensure Minho ended up there too, but Hyunjin declined, preferring to let Minho believe he had started a fresh, new life. He wanted Minho's despair to be greater when reality eventually shattered his illusions. Chang found Hyunjin's approach somewhat frightening but agreed. Hyunjin also mentioned that the other 4 would be sent to prison immediately after their release from juvenile detention, as he didn't want them back in society even for a second. Chang admitted he never wanted to become Hyunjin's enemy and then expressed frustration about his current situation. Despite starting at the bottom, as Hyunjin advised, he felt impatient with the lack of progress. Hyunjin reassured him that things would soon start to change. A few days later, real estate prices skyrocketed nationwide. At a construction site, workers were idling when a mishap caused metal beams to fall on one of them. Panic ensued, and some workers wanted to call emergency services, but the foreman insisted they report to their superiors first, fearing financial losses if construction was halted. The injured worker was eventually taken to a hospital, but not the nearest one. He was sent to a facility an hour away that had ties to the company. After a delayed notification, his son arrived at the hospital, only to be told that his father's negligence had caused significant damage. The company, however, wouldn't seek compensation. The son, left with no support or answers, could only weep by his father's side. This was a day Jong Hyuk, a young man in his 20s, would never forget. Chang, walking around the construction site, thought about how he wanted to enjoy life, drinking and having fun with girls, but knew he had to trust Hyunjin's plans. Seeing how swiftly Hyunjin dealt with the bullies gave Chang hope that even someone as powerful as Chang Suk could face similar consequences. Determined to stay the course, Chang decided to return to work. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the site. Rushing to the scene, Chang discovered a major accident had occurred. A worker mentioned a potential spill, and when Chang asked if anyone was trapped, the worker confirmed that 5 or 6 people were stuck. Chang's expression darkened, and although the worker assured him that the superiors had been notified to prevent the situation from escalating publicly, Chang was furious. He grabbed the worker, demanding if that was really the priority. Surprised, he recalled Hyunjin's advice: in case of an accident, use his name and power to help, prioritizing the workers over financial losses. Chang instructed the worker to call 911 and request a rescue team. Despite objections about the potential public exposure and financial repercussions, Chang insisted, asserting that people's lives were not to be played with. He took charge, declaring he would take full responsibility, and urged the worker to hurry and make the call, emphasizing the urgency and the need to prioritize human lives over everything else. Chang inquired about their estimated arrival time, prompting a man in a suit to mention that the rescue team had departed for their location immediately after receiving the call. Chang suggested that they begin aiding the victims right away, but the man insisted that they had been explicitly instructed not to interfere. While they conversed, another man observed them closely. As more debris continued to fall, Chang emphasized the need to prioritize saving the trapped individuals. He argued that if they had time to talk, they should make another call to 911, as acting together in such crisis is more effective. Eventually, the rescue team arrived, and remarkably, most people only sustained minor injuries, with no lives at risk. Chang expressed relief at the fortunate outcome, but the man pointed out a lingering issue: negative internet articles about the incident had already been published, with more likely to follow. He acknowledged that the situation had spiraled beyond their control, leaving them with limited options. Chang questioned what could be done next, leaving the man baffled since he thought Chang had a plan. Chang clarified that his priority had been the victim's safety. Just then, Chang's father called, but he ignored it to make a more urgent call to Hyunjin. Finding a secluded spot, he dialed Hyunjin's number. Later, at the Myeongjin construction office, Chang Suk seized the opportunity to criticize his brother's handling of the situation. He slammed 2 negative articles about Myeongjin's construction practices onto the table, questioning Chang's judgment in not reporting to his superiors first. Chang Suk stressed the importance of the company's reputation and the potential financial losses if the incident deterred buyers. He accused Chang of being naive and unaware of the burden he had placed on the real workers, who now had to rectify the situation. Their father mentioned that Chang's extensive emergency calls had not only alerted 911 but also the police, attracting reporters much quicker. With the gravity of the situation laid out, he demanded to know how Chang planned to take responsibility. Hyunjin had previously informed Chang that the company president took immense pride in their construction standards and was a master of the trade. Any future safety-related incidents would prompt his direct intervention. Chang found Hyunjin's advice daunting but trusted his guidance. Chang proposed that they demolish the apartment and start rebuilding it. Chang-suk, noting Chang's limited experience as a high school graduate, urged him to consider the financial implications more carefully. He explained that most of the construction funding comes from the bank, and interest accrues daily. The costs associated with rebuilding, combined with the accumulating interest, would be devastating. He questioned if such drastic action was truly necessary for just one building. Chang reiterated that this was precisely why he suggested rebuilding. He acknowledged the enormous potential losses, despite not being an expert in finance. However, he emphasized that trust was their most critical asset. He pointed out the widespread issues of poor construction and the tarnished reputations of many construction companies. If they simply patched up the damaged section and continued as usual, what did they think would happen? Chang-suk argued that no one would buy the apartments anyway, given that someone had alerted the entire Daisan to the situation. He suggested that merely fixing the damaged part would minimize their losses. Chang countered that the real concern should be about restoring trust, which had been the foundation of their stability. This statement surprised their father. Chang continued, asserting that by acknowledging their fault and demonstrating a commitment to perfecting the first apartment, they could regain some trust, which was essential for Myeongjin Construction's reputation. Chang-suk mocked Chang, asking if he was an idealist or just foolish, emphasizing the company's profits. Their father intervened, acknowledging that Chang had matured. Hyun-jin recounted a similar incident from another timeline, where the president publicly admitted his subordinates had hidden the issue and demonstrated his construction philosophy. The most infuriating aspect of the current incident was the basic mistake made in pouring the concrete, which should never have happened given the company's reputation. He stressed that safety in housing was paramount, with other concerns secondary. He praised Chang for his wise actions, recognizing that Myeongjin Construction, while a company, was also a family business that valued the quality of their work. He encouraged Chang to continue on this path, suggesting he might one day follow in his footsteps. A few days later, it was revealed that one of the incident's victims had suffered severe injuries, resulting in the amputation of both legs. His family, distressed, noted that Myeongjin Construction had not covered the hospital bills, nor had they addressed the issue of compensation. 3 representatives from Myeongjin Construction approached the grieving family, bowing deeply and apologizing profusely for the accident. Earlier, Chang had called Hyun-jin, expressing his uncertainty about what to do next, and his father now have high hopes from him. Hyun-jin advised him to prioritize addressing the accident, highlighting that there were 2 types of victims. The first group consisted of the potential new tenants of the apartment. To placate them, they should offer a delayed period of interim loan interest payment, an adjustment of the pre-sale price, and ensure transparency in the construction process. This approach would likely calm them down. The second group, the injured workers, posed a more significant challenge. Hyun-jin urged Chang to do everything possible to alleviate their suffering, so much so that they would feel proud to have worked for Myeongjin Construction. The representatives assured the injured workers' family that while money could never fully compensate for their pain, the company would cover all hospital bills and provide an additional 500 million won in compensation. Moreover, they promised to employ the injured worker in a department where his field experience would be valuable, acknowledging his long-term dedication to the company. The family, overwhelmed by the gesture, expressed their heartfelt gratitude. Chang observed silently, and later, while sitting and smoking, he reflected with one of the representatives. He asked if the man knew what construction truly was. The man replied that it was about building things, but Chang shared his realization that it was more than just a money-making business. This incident had opened his eyes to the many people connected to construction, those who work to support their families and those who invest their life savings into buying homes. Chang admitted that he had taken his position too lightly and expressed his desire for a simple life. He noted that because of the accident, his perspective had changed significantly, and he realized he might be more like his father, caring deeply for those close to him. The representative acknowledged that Chang had indeed changed. Their moment was interrupted by someone reprimanding them for smoking in a non-smoking area. Chang immediately lashed out, showing that some aspects of his personality remained unchanged. A week later, the ripple effects of the incident began to unfold in unexpected ways. News reports emerged, with Jang Hyuk introducing himself as the son of a laborer who had been permanently disabled in an accident involving MO Construction Company. While the Myeongjin construction accident initially garnered little attention due to the lack of casualties, a subsequent apartment construction failure in Seoul, resulting in 5 deaths, brought significant scrutiny. Reports revealed that workers had tried to alert authorities about safety issues, but the company had suppressed their efforts. Public outrage grew as more hidden incidents came to light. Amidst the nationwide anger, Jang Hyuk appeared on TV to recount his father's unfortunate fate. The reporter asked him to detail what had happened, and Jang Hyuk began his poignant explanation. Jang Hyuk began explaining how his father sustained his life-changing injuries, focusing on the construction company's response. When asked by the reporter, Jang Hyuk detailed how, instead of calling an ambulance immediately after the accident, the foreman prioritized reporting to superiors. As a result, his father wasn't taken to the hospital until 2 hours later. The reporter pointed out that the hospital his father was eventually taken to was an hour away, bypassing a closer facility. Jang Hyuk explained that the company insisted on using their affiliated hospital to gain financial benefits, though his family never received any such assistance. The reporter then asked why the company made such a cold-hearted decision. Jang Hyuk explained that it was all about hiding the accident and minimizing construction delays, treating workers as expendable resources in their pursuit of profit. He stated that he came forward to prevent others from suffering as his father did. The reporter thanked him and mentioned that he had something further to say. Jang Hyuk revealed that he was now working at another construction site where a similar incident occurred. However, the new company's response was entirely different. Meanwhile, Chang had become the construction manager and began visiting the site early every day. The workers warmly welcomed him, which he found surprising. One worker even offered him homemade onion juice, noting its health benefits. As Chang settled into the site office, pondering his new role while making ramen, the worker informed him of a guest from a broadcasting company wanting to interview him. Chang, thinking he might have said something wrong, agreed to meet them. That night, at the president's mansion, the news highlighted Myeongjin Construction's decision to rebuild the apartment despite significant financial losses due to borrowed funds. The news credited Chang with playing a crucial role in this decision. They interviewed the injured worker's wife, who expressed her gratitude and surprise at receiving hospital bill payments and a personal apology from Chang, the company's eldest son. Despite her ongoing anger over her husband's injury, she appreciated the company's acknowledgement of his long service. The president turned up the volume as Chang's interview aired. The interviewer praised Chang's numerous selfless actions and asked why he chose to take them. Chang explained that it was simply what his father had taught him. From a young age, his father emphasized that their work wasn't just about money but about maintaining a family business they would carry for their entire lives. The president received a call from Chairman Park, who congratulated him on raising such an exemplary son. The president, surprised by his son's newfound maturity, remarked that Chang was indeed following in his footsteps. Their conversation shifted to Park's daughter, and the next day, a woman called the president, stating that Chairman Park wanted Chang to go on a blind date with his daughter. This was fortuitous, given that her family was full of judges and prosecutors. The president inquired why their interest had changed, recalling how quickly they had been rejected in the past. The woman explained that Chang's reputation had spread far beyond Daesan, making him highly sought after. She mentioned that if they needed more options, she was available to assist. A knock on the door interrupted their conversation, and a woman entered, asking if the president needed her. He confirmed this, informing her that they no longer required the matchmaking company's services and inquiring about their current contracts. She reported that they had several significant projects, including the reconstruction of 3,000 houses for S Company, a new construction project in Gangbuk, and apartments for J Chemical Industry employees. Additionally, Daesan City had contacted them to expedite a contract for 5,000 houses, requesting completion before the end of the next year. This opportunity was the jackpot the president had been waiting for. Chang was then invited to a meeting where his father announced his promotion to executive director of the company. The people who once looked down on him now congratulated him warmly. His father mentioned that Chang would be involved in the Daesan City project, acknowledging that while it was early for him, it would be a valuable learning experience. Chang agreed and bowed, eager to contribute. At school, some girls whispered among themselves while a boy sat awkwardly in his seat. Hyunjin received news of Chang's promotion and his involvement in the Daesan City project. He hadn't anticipated such rapid progress, as he had planned to leverage his influence to participate in the project in the future. This unexpected change, possibly a result of the butterfly effect, required him to recalibrate his plans carefully. He noted that there could be no flaws in his strategy. Suddenly, Hyunjin spotted Chang's car and wondered why he was at the school unannounced. Chang met with the principal, who expressed admiration for Chang's actions, noting that he had become a symbol of Daesan's pride following his news coverage. Chang explained that he was there to express his gratitude for the school's support of Hyunjin, calling it a gesture of basic equivalent exchange. He offered a generous gift, the construction of a new gym and a modern swimming pool with the city's help. The principal was thrilled, noting that these additions would elevate the school's prestige. He promised to continue supporting Hyunjin, and Chang agreed, but also requested a meeting with teacher Chul. When Chul arrived at the principal's office, Chang greeted him warmly. He expressed admiration for Chul's pragmatic approach, acknowledging that in a world where survival and prosperity are paramount, working for the wealthy is understandable. He referred to the incident involving Shin Young-min, where Chul had punished him so harshly that rumors of bribery had spread. Chang dismissed these rumors, asserting that they were inconsequential. He assured Chul that his efforts would be rewarded and that in 3 years, Chul would be even prouder of his achievements. Chul, though nervous and sweating, agreed wholeheartedly. Chang then mentioned that he had heard about Chul's frequent visits to Miracle, a cabaret with beautiful girls. He revealed that he had put in a good word for Chul there and invited him to enjoy a night out with his trusted companions, without worrying about expenses. Additionally, he handed Chul a tightly packed box of vitamins, hinting that it contained money, and urged him to remember this favor. Chang emphasized that he was not just any parent with some spare cash, but the successor of Myeongjin Construction, the city's most powerful and wealthy construction company. He wanted Chul to understand the significance of their interaction and the level of influence he wielded. Later, after everything had settled, Chang and Hyunjin went to the roof. Chang expressed his gratitude, but Hyunjin remained nonchalant. Surprised by Hyunjin's calm acceptance, Chang asked why he didn't inquire about the reason for the thanks. Hyunjin, with his keen mind, replied that it was obvious. Chang was thankful for his handling of the construction incident. Chang confirmed this, admitting that he now fully acknowledged Hyunjin's intelligence and strategic thinking. He mentioned that while bringing down Changsuk was relatively simple, involving just a bit of investigation into his private life, this recent feat was extraordinary. Hyunjin had accurately identified his father's tendencies and predicted the benefits of the reconstruction decision. Thanks to Hyunjin's efforts, Chang had become the executive director and hoped to eventually become the chairman. He realized Hyunjin was aiming for a significant future, one that required substantial power, and he was grateful for Hyunjin's support in positioning him as the future chairman. He promised to uphold this role to the best of his ability, believing that together, they would be unstoppable. Hyunjin responded with a simple, sure, prompting Chang to comment on his blandness despite his brilliance. Chang then offered his help, urging Hyunjin to ask for anything he needed. When Hyunjin inquired about specifics, Chang assured him that he was willing to do anything, anytime, whatever it may be. Hyunjin then asked how much cash Chang could spend on him. Later, during the closing hours of school, teacher Chul entered Hyunjin's class with exciting news. He announced that the school had established a scholarship system, generously sponsored by the prestigious Myeongjin Construction. The scholarship amounted to a substantial 10 million won, with no limit on the number of recipients. However, it would not be awarded to just anyone. The selection would be based on academic performance and future potential. The first recipient, chosen by Myeongjin themselves, was none other than their diligent classmate, Hyunjin. The class wasn't surprised, knowing Hyunjin was closely associated with one of the Myeongjin heirs and ranked first academically in the entire school. Chul also announced that Siwoo from Class 8 had been selected for his promising future in the ring, adding another name to the list of prestigious scholarship recipients. For those who weren't selected, teacher Chul encouraged them not to be disheartened and to continue focusing on their studies. By doing so, they might have a chance at earning this generous scholarship in the future. As students made their way home, 3 of them discussed how predictable the scholarship recipients were. They agreed that Hyunjin was a given, being the class president and the top student for 2 consecutive semesters. However, Siwoo's selection puzzled them. One student remarked that Siwoo was only notable for his past involvement in Taekwondo, which didn't seem sufficient for such a prestigious scholarship. The tall student agreed, finding the situation odd, while the short blue-haired student speculated further. He questioned what potential Siwoo had to justify the scholarship, suggesting that he only received it because of his friendship with Hyunjin. He wondered why this wasn't handled discreetly and why Hyunjin was receiving so much support from Myeongjin Construction and the school. He even speculated if Hyunjin could be an illegitimate son of the chairman, but another student dismissed this idea, pointing out that if it were true, Hyunjin would have been treated much better from the start. The blue-haired student continued his rant until he spotted Hyunjin, who called him over. The blue-haired student, named Cho Jae-jin, regretted speaking ill of Hyunjin, knowing his reputation as the crazy psycho of Chownil. He feared Hyunjin might retaliate. However, Hyunjin told Jae-jin to lift his head and stand proud. He acknowledged Jae-jin as the school's infamous blabbermouth and assured him he wasn't angry. In fact, Hyunjin found Jae-jin's talkative nature useful. Hyunjin asked Jae-jin for a favor, promising that there was no reason for him to be afraid. Jae-jin, relieved but still wary, agreed to help. Hyunjin admitted that the scholarships were indeed unfairly awarded, using Siwoo and himself as examples. He then revealed that there was no limit to the number of scholarship recipients, implying that Jae-jin could also receive one. Hyunjin instructed Jae-jin to spread a rumor throughout the school, just as he had been doing earlier. The rumor would claim that the Myeongjin construction scholarships were unfair. Hyunjin wanted Jae-jin to add a bit of exaggeration to make the story more compelling. The next day, Chownil High was buzzing with a peculiar new rumor. With that, we must conclude for today. If you enjoyed this part and want to see what happens next, please like and subscribe. Thank you.